Hello friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Michelle Fondin and I'm the author of the latest book, Chakra Healing for Vibrant Energy, exploring your 7 energy centers with mindfulness, yoga, and Ayurveda. And thank you so much for returning to our series on twin flames and the twin flame connection. If you're watching this video on July 1st, 2019, tomorrow is the first day, July 2nd, at 6 p.m. Pacific time that I'm doing YouTube Live. So if you're interested in a twin flame Q&A, go ahead and tune in at that time, 6 p.m. Pacific tomorrow, Tuesday, July 2nd, 2019. Today, we are talking about the dark night of the soul. And every time I hear that phrase, I always think it's night, K-N-I-G-H-T, when it's really referring to like dark night, N-I-G-H-T, of the souls. We will interchange that a little bit. And as some of you know by my posting on YouTube, that last week when I tried to post a video, somehow, even though the angels were prompting me to talk about separation ending, for some reason, the material that I covered didn't want to be out there for some reason, because about 4 minutes into the video, before the actual content even started, my mics died. And I had no idea that my mics died and did the entire video on, a silent movie mode. So there you go. So for me, I took that as a sign that my angels were not ready to have this out there in YouTube land. But in the past few days, it's been the dark night of the soul, and it's really been prominent. So yay, today that's what I'm presenting to you guys. A lot of viewers and a lot of people who write to me ask questions about whether or not they have met their twin flame, or whether or not they're in a twin flame connection, or whether or not this person might be their twin flame. So let me just qualify with this video by saying that if you have not experienced the dark night of the soul, then you're not in a twin flame relationship, or it's too early to tell. Now, in my instance, and I was telling someone I was doing an angel reading for, that in my instance with my twin flame connection, we are textbook twin flames. So I mean, maybe the reason is, and I was saying this too, is that maybe the reason is that my twin flame and I are textbook because I need to put these videos out to help you guys. And if we weren't textbook, then it would be really difficult because there would be too many gray areas and I wouldn't be able to talk about twin flames and the connection and all that. But he and I basically fulfill the parameters of twin flame connection and relationship to a T. There is no variable. There is no variation. We are so classic. Like, you can check every single box. So the dark night of the soul is when you encounter your twin flame. And if you're not sure about the signs, go back and view the 14 signs that you're in a twin flame connection. So when you encounter your twin flame and you have the opening of the heart chakra and the other chakras, but the heart chakra is usually one of the first chakras to start to awaken. When you have the opening of the heart chakra by proximity to your twin flame, and for me it was physical proximity to my twin flame, when you have that heart chakra opening and then you start having those feelings of love and falling in love, very soon thereafter, you're going to start triggering each other. And the design that God made for you guys to trigger each other actually comes as a purging of past stuff, your past fears, your past baggage. And it could be in this lifetime, or it could be in previous lifetimes. Oftentimes it is in previous lifetimes as well. But you are going to, by virtue of seeing your twin flame, you guys are going to trigger each other. And this triggering is not a pretty picture. It's never a pretty picture. It's always coupled with intense feelings of anything that you really fear. So it could be like something that you fear in relationships. So for example, that my biggest fear that I thought, and through the trajectory of this relationship, I've discovered that it was something deeper than that. But initially I thought my fear in relationships was the fear of abandonment. And the fear of abandonment for me, it's really easy to trace it back to this lifetime. Now, we're not going to delve into past lifetimes, but in this lifetime, it was really easy for me to trace back to the genesis of that. And when I was 3 to 4, my father left. Now, I did have a relationship with my father growing up. However, the drama attached to how he left and the time that he left, it was so filled with emotion and drama that it left a lasting impression on me as a child. And in any subsequent relationship, there was that great fear of abandonment. Like, this person's going to leave me. And so oftentimes when you have that fear, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? When you have a fear that's so deep-rooted, it really is, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy that you have such a fear that the person actually does go away if your fear is abandonment. And of course, nothing lasts forever. And that's another attachment that we tend to have, is that, okay, I want to be with this person forever and ever and ever and ever. And there's no such thing as forever and ever and ever, ever in this lifetime, in this space-time causality, or the space-time continuum, if you will. That was one of my biggest fears. So lo and behold, what happens? My twin flame shows up. It's amazing, starting to fall in love, and then boom, he abandons me. In more ways than one, and we already talked in the past about ghosting and such. So there were a lot of other things that tended to happen during that time period as well. But what happens is you trigger your twin flame, and your twin flame triggers you. And it's going to come out as the deepest, darkest insecurities that you have, the deepest, darkest insecurities that they have. It's going to be your deepest, darkest fears. It's going to be their deepest, darkest fears. And you guys are just going to like consistently trigger each other. So while there's these great feelings, these feelings of connection, these feelings of home, these feelings of, oh my gosh, I've never met someone like you, and this instant recognition and this intensity in the good, you're also going to trigger each other in the bad. All of those things that you have held on to as far as your fears go, you're going to be triggering each other. And that is where the dark night of the soul comes in. The dark night of the soul comes in as a design for you to transcend those things. And so you cannot possibly reach the level of spiritual awakening and spiritual enlightenment that you need to attain in order to have this union until you have gone through the dark night of the soul and you have dug deep into your deepest wounds, your deepest insecurities, your deepest fears. Now, for the naysayers out there, don't write me and tell me that there's nothing to this, that for you, you know, you've worked through everything, you're good, you're all bright and shiny and crystal clear clean. If that was the case and you are indeed a twin flame, you would be in union with your twin flame, and vice versa. Your twin flame would be in reunion with you, and they will have worked through their deepest, darkest fears as well. So if you're not in union, in blissful union, and you haven't experienced the dark night of the soul, or you're in the initial stages of union and you have not yet experienced the dark night of the soul, wow, something is going to come to you and you are going to be really taken back and floored. For those of you that have been through or are going through the dark night of the soul, you know it is some of the most painful stuff you've ever been through in your entire life. Here's why. The reason is because there is a sense of enlightenment even walking through this pain. So let me explain. In the midst of abandonment by my twin flame, in the midst of the ghosting by my twin flame, I knew, I had done enough spiritual work in my life, and I had done enough broken relationships in my life and really tried to learn from them. I knew that the triggering that had happened was not all him. I instinctively knew this. I instinctively knew that I had a part in this and that I needed to figure out why I was entertaining this relationship of abandonment in something that was so incredibly blissful. So through that, I began pretty much immediately, it took a few weeks, but pretty much immediately taking responsibility for what had happened. And in the initial phases, I kind of took it on as blame, saying like, I'm really sorry. I'm sorry for messing things up. Like, I'm sorry for doing A, B, or C. Like, I really apologize. I want you to know. And I even said this to him. I said, I want you to know that this really doesn't have anything to do with you, that it mostly has to do with my baggage from past relationships. And this, I told him before I really knew the concept of twin flames and what the twin flame connection was. So I instinctively kind of knew, but that didn't make it less painful. That didn't make it less rosy. You know, it wasn't like, oh, yay, now I know what I'm doing so I can stop it. And it's not that easy, and it's not that simple, because you have to remember that when they are bringing up your own baggage, simultaneously, you are bringing up their baggage too. It might mean for them, I'm just going to throw a bunch of subjects out there and let whatever sticks to you stick. Because it could mean that these are your issues as well. But it could be that, like, I'm not worthy to be loved, or this person's out of my league, or the age difference is too much, or this person might want to have kids and I don't want to have kids, or like you just A, B, or C, you just like plug it in, and you know that you are triggering their darkest, deepest insecurities as well at the same time. And it's just a recipe for disaster. And that in and of itself is why this separation tends to happen, is because both of you have recognition of each other. Both of you have recognition of the bliss. Both of you have recognition of this special connection that you both have on different levels, but you're both really aware of it. You're both really, really aware of, like, oh my gosh, this is something magical. This is amazing. This is beautiful. This is wonderful. Like, this is the person I've been waiting for my entire life. And so there is cognizance of that. Both of you guys have cognizance of that. However, at the same time, there is the purging, or the bringing up of all of this baggage, of all these fears, of all these self-doubts, of all these feelings that are not so good. And so as a result, you kind of think that it's your twin that's doing this to you, and vice versa. Your twin kind of thinks that it's you doing this to him or her. And so then they start to associate these bad feelings that they're having with you, when in fact, it's not that the bad feelings are with you. It's that the bad feelings are triggered by you because the mirroring of your souls have agreed to design this so that you are bringing out and purging out all of this stuff from each other. And until you're going through it, it's really hard to recognize that. And so you're going to continually think that it's the other person bringing about all of this pain in you. And so every time you see them, or every time you're triggered by them, you're like, oh my God, I just don't want to see this person again. But you really do want to see them again. So it's really messed up. It's like, I want to be with him. I want to be with him. I want to be with him. I want to feel that love. I want to feel that connection. I want to feel that soul connection to, like, I've never felt before. And at the same time, you're feeling intense pain. So you're like, oh my God, I don't want to see them. I don't want to see them. You know, so it's like this push-pull of wanting to get to know them, wanting to be near them, wanting to be a part of their lives. And at the same time, the triggers that keep happening are like confusing to you, because you're like, why is this person triggering me so much? This sucks. And then starts the normal human feelings of like anger, and the feelings of like betrayal, and the feelings of like, why is this person doing this when they know how much I care about them? Or why is this person doing this when they know like that we have this awesome connection? It takes that spiritual awakening to be able to realize that, and realize actually what is going on versus like what looks like is going on the surface. Now, the divine feminines tend to be a little bit more awakened, spiritually advanced on the outside than the divine masculines, although the divine masculines often are very spiritually advanced on the inside, so that they're very, 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 very spiritually evolved. It's just that the awareness is not awakened and they're kind of on the forefront. So for the divine feminines that have that awakening more on the forefront, they're able to just kind of see it a little sooner. And so for me specifically, I was able to see it really like closely, like right away. Now, I wasn't aware of all of my issues. I wasn't aware of all my baggage because, like I said, the baggage that I thought was ever present, that fear of abandonment, I'm going to give you that example because I'm sure there's a lot more. But that fear of abandonment was the first thing that surfaced. So for me, being able to see that and realize that he wasn't really the one abandoning me. And in fact, I said in previous videos that I was the one that was cutting things off. I was the one that was precipitous to judge him. I was the one that was precipitous to say, like, I don't like the way that this is going. I don't like the way you're not doing A, B, or C for me. I don't like the way, so it was mostly me. It was mostly me preemptively causing the abandonment issues that I was ever so afraid of. So it was really messed up. And not that like he didn't play his part, but a lot of it was me doing it. Once I realized that, and I realized like, oh my gosh, like this is not going the way I want it to go. But I realized this person's really special to me, and I realized this person is my soul partner, and I didn't know twin flame again at that time, but I just knew it. Then I started to backtrack and kind of look at myself, my own behavior, and like my own triggers and what was happening. And it was immediately at that moment that I started sending him unconditional love. Now, I started sending him unconditional love in the way that I knew how at that time. My notion of what unconditional love is now is much different than what it was then. So it's kind of like awakening as a baby and not really knowing or understanding life. And in this case, I was a baby in unconditional love, thinking that I was loving unconditionally in the early stages. And then it wasn't until I had purged or gone through or walked through the fire, so to speak, of the dark night of the soul, that I was really, truly, truly, truly able to understand what unconditional love truly is. And so I think I'm in a much better place now than I was previously. And it took a good 7 to 8 months to really figure it all out. So it was, like I said, it's painful when you're going through this. You feel like you're going to die sometimes because the pain that is being purged and taken out of you and brought to the surface is something like you've never truly experienced before. God gives you grace in this. Let's put it this way. And you know this. God gives you grace in it because while you are purging all of this stuff, all of these deep-seated insecurities, there is a sense of peace. And that is what differentiates this journey from other relationships. So other relationships, you may have been triggered by your partner, but usually you're triggered and then you have these feelings of like anger and frustration and sadness. But, pretty soon you're cycling through those feelings, pretty fast. So you're cycling through those feelings and then you're going to a normal state of like homeostasis and you talk things out with your partner and then things kind of get back to normal. And then if it's an unhealthy relationship, things might go back to anger, sadness, and whatnot. But this is totally different because the sadness that you're feeling or the frustration that you're feeling or the anger that you're feeling or whatever feelings that are negative that you're feeling is always accompanied by this sense of peacefulness. And you don't quite understand why. Like you're not understanding why am I so really internally peaceful even though all this turmoil is happening. So let me give you guys another example that you might be able to understand. For me, I was triggered a lot by my twin flame upon seeing him. So I would see him, he would say something, he would do something, and I was instantly triggered. And so later on, I would be like crying about it, but it wasn't the crying had really no emotions attached to them. So the crying felt more like a release than anything else. And I didn't, in the beginning, I totally didn't understand it. I was like, I don't know what's going on. I see him and I start crying and I don't get it. I don't understand it. Or I see a picture of him and I start crying and I don't understand it. Or I see his name, even like for me, seeing his name written would get me triggered and I would start crying and I wouldn't understand it. But the crying, the purging, like all of that was never really accompanied by any feelings of like severe trauma. So it was like a release. It just felt like a release. It was a release of the past. It was a release of past hurt, past relationships, past whatever it is. Like it just felt like a release. Felt like it was something that I needed to release. Now, sometimes the crying would be quite intense. Some of the crying would go on for hours. Sometimes I would think back to conversations we had had or like exchanges we had had, and I would get upset or angry or like frustrated or like not understanding why. But those were immediately accompanied with feelings of love for my twin flame. The journey through the dark night of the soul is so incredibly different than anything you've ever experienced before. And it's really something that's so incredibly different for each and every person because your insecurities and your triggers are so different from each other. Now, there's a limited number of themes having to do with humanity because we're humans. Let's go back to where I started and where I ended up at the end of the dark night of the soul journey, because now I'm 100% at peace. Like, I know my twin flame loves me. I know he adores me. I know this. Like, I know this. I know he is with me all the time. I know he is with me in spirit and person and everything. So I don't have that anxiety that I used to have as I was going through the dark night of the soul. I didn't have the doubts that I used to have. And I certainly don't have the deep-seated and rooted emotions that I used to have as I would think about him or see his name, or that obsession that you tend to have because you want the good feeling, but like the good feeling is always accompanied by a bad feeling in the midst of the dark night of the soul. So you're just like so confused. It's like, you know, the song Hurts So Good by, I don't know who did that, John Cougar Mellencamp maybe? Write down the name of the artist if you remember that song, Hurts So Good. And I was just thinking, I had a flashback of one of my favorite 80s movies, Weird Science, where Lisa, the girl that they created in their science lab, said something about hurts so good. But anyway, but it's that feeling of like, I know I need to release this, and so I'm doing it and I'm crying and I'm purging and you know, usually it's coming with sleepless nights or waking up in the middle of the night and you're just like, oh, good God, good Lord. And like all of this is accompanied by like the release, the sleepless nights, the crying, the deep emotions, the obsession. Like all of this is all together and you're trying to maintain a normal existence as well. And that is super duper duper hard. It's super hard because you're like, you feel like you're going crazy sometimes and you don't understand why you're crying so much, and you don't understand why just a photograph of your twin flame can make you just burst out into tears for no specific reason. You don't understand why they could just say hi to you and you burst out into tears for no specific reason. You're not understanding all of this and you're going through this like dark night of the soul where you're just feeling like all of your fears are coming forth and you don't get it. Like you don't understand why this is happening. For me, the transformation that happened was fear of abandonment turning into unworthiness to receive. Now, what is interesting, you guys, is that throughout my relationship life, I had always been the accuser of my partners, saying like, you don't know how to receive love. Like, you do not know how to receive love. Like, you don't think you're worthy of love, or you don't know how to receive love. It wasn't really ever like you don't know how to give love, which was the case, but it was more like, I'm giving you all this love and you don't know how to receive it. So it's really interesting that in the end, it was like an aha moment that really happened for me. And it was that I learned that really my deep-seated emotion that had been latent or dormant was this unable to really feel that I was worthy of receiving love. And that was like one of the greatest epiphanies that I had ever had. And it came to me through many serendipitous events that had occurred, and this was pretty recently. It was many serendipitous events that had occurred, and I'm not going to go into detail. But when I came to that epiphany, when I came to that awakening, it was done. Like it was like my angels and guides and God and Jesus were like saying to me, like, okay, now you actually get it. Like you actually get what we've been trying to show you this whole time. We've been trying to show you that you are receiving this love. We've been trying to show you that we're giving you this love and your twin flame is giving you this love, but you just haven't felt that you were worthy to receive it, so you weren't receiving it. And it was at that moment that all of the darkness of the dark night of the soul, even though it had gotten lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter, like as you are releasing more of the internal baggage that you have, as you're starting to like purge and release more and doing more spiritual work and just like awakening a little more and just surrendering to God and letting go, like it gets lighter. So some of you may be experiencing a lot of the crying now or the sleepless nights now. Just know that it does, once things are purging, it does get lighter, so it's not happening as frequently. And then pretty soon, once you have your epiphany of where your most deep-seated insecurity lies, your most deep-seated darkness lies, once you really discover that, and it might be a couple things. For me, it was like one big global thing. Once you really super realize it and it comes to light and it comes to that greatest epiphany, it just disappears. Like I said, for me, it wasn't even a big deal anymore. It wasn't like the obsession stopped. It wasn't a big deal anymore. It wasn't like I needed validation from my twin flame. It was this knowingness. It was this understanding from a cellular level. So that's the difference, you guys. It's not like an intellectual understanding. It's an understanding from a cellular level that for me, this is my insecurity, but for me, it was a knowing from a cellular level that my guy really loves me. Like he really does. He really, 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 really loves me. And I really felt it for the first time. I felt it for the first time. I accepted it for the first time. I kind of relaxed for the first time in like so many months. And what's really interesting is that when I did that, and there was some other work that took place that I really want to address in another video, but when I did that, our dynamic started to change. And it wasn't based on anything that we told each other. It was all based on everything happening in the 5D and on my acceptance that he really does love me. And it was my acceptance from like I said, a cellular standpoint. So it wasn't like I just thought it and it was there, boom. But it was like I thought it and I felt it and I knew it and I know it. And it's not anything that's ever going to change. And when I was able to relax into that and to relax into receiving his love and really receiving it, like no doubts whatsoever, and really being open to it and open to receiving his love and just understanding and knowing that he loves me. And there's nothing that I can do to take that love away. It's like he just does the way I love him. And once I did that and once I felt that, the dynamic completely changed. Completely changed. Your dark night of the soul that you're going through now or you have been through, just know that there is an end in sight. It's not going to be like this forever. The pain that you're feeling, the suffering that you're feeling, the obsession that you're feeling, the anxiety that you're feeling, the sleepless nights that you're feeling, the crying, the puffy eyes, and all that stuff, none of that is going to last forever, as nothing does last forever. So just know that. And just seriously consider where you're at in your journey and what you're willing to accept and what you're willing to see about yourself, because that is really important. The quicker you're able to really see the unfolding of the layers of who you are, and if you've denied things in the past, if you've accused other people of other things in the past, but you haven't taken a look at yourself and those things that you were judging or accusing of them of, then the Dark Night of Soul is the perfect opportunity to actually backtrack and look at yourself from a different perspective. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for subscribing to my channel below. Share this video with other twin flames, and thank you for buying a book or pledging your support on Patreon, www.patreon.com/Michelle S. Fondin, and I will see you in the next video.